Welcome to Good Energy, Mental Competency Skills, Building Better Work Stress Boundaries. I'm Rochelle Schultz, Assistant Program Co-Chair of the HBA's Trust and Estates Law Section. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Nancy Sanborn and Brian Joy of the Sanborn team. Nancy and Brian have been the official sponsor of this section since 2006. Nancy and Brian, say hello. Are they here?
Oh, it doesn't look like they're actually their hands.
Okay, well then let's move on. In addition to the Sanborn team, the Trust and Estates section is also sponsored by Bond Services of California, Liberty Mutual Surety, California Title Company, and Pickford Escrow Company. I'm delighted to introduce our speaker, Jim Eischen. Jim is an attorney with over 39 years of legal experience and a nationally recognized authority in healthcare business planning and regulatory compliance. He authored the chapter on innovative cash healthcare compliance in the California Medical Association Physician Legal Handbook. He advises healthcare professionals and organizations across the United States on designing creative and compliant wellness care models. Jim is also a respected speaker on attorney wellness, mental competency, and professional burnout mitigation. Today, he draws on his personal experience and research to teach us strategies to mitigate burnout. And now let's get started.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me to your Beverly Hills Bar Association CLE. This is a topic I've spoken about for quite a few years. I think it's coming up on 12, 13 years. It all happened by accident, but nonetheless, here I am. I've been doing these presentations. I enjoy doing it. I'm going to share with you what I know or what I've learned. I want to make clear from the outset, I'm not a licensed healthcare professional. I'm not a psychiatrist or a therapist or a medical doctor. So I'm not here to, in essence, give you some version of therapy, if you needed it, But what I am going to do is bring my roughly 40 years of legal experience, plus about 12 or 13 years of really researching and looking at this and presenting on it and thinking about it to try to give you what I think is my best sense of what's going on with attorneys, with burnout, compassion fatigue. What are some of the symptoms? What are some of the attributes? What's going on with the nature of our profession? Why are we susceptible? And I believe we are to that. And in essence, some mental challenges in general. Why does it really matter to us? Why is that important? What can we do with it? Where can we go with it? And I'll try to give you some tools. Now, these tools are not a replacement for more formal interaction or intervention, but I'm going to try to give you tools that I think help us all assess where we're at, mitigate what we can, do incremental improvements when we can, however we can, and just remain aware of how we're doing. And I think it's so important because as attorneys, we are essentially the product. We think, we analyze, we talk, we listen, we negotiate, we represent, we advocate. Sometimes we judge. Sometimes we are the trier of fact. In any event, we do very important work that matters. And so our state of well-being really matters. So that's what this is about. And I used to do this talk running on empty. It's a little negative, so I kind of like good energy. Because as you'll see in the presentation, I try to keep this upbeat. I don't want this to bring anyone down. It's more about just looking at ways that we can make things a little bit better. So let's go next slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's just my background. And here I'll stop and just make a really quick observation that this was all an accident. So I was a partner in a larger, well-regarded San Diego law firm. I've practiced in San Diego my entire career. And I was doing national healthcare business work. And apparently I was unusually happy for a partner. So thought a member of the board of the Cal Western Law School, board of directors, who needed a speaker on mental competency for their CLE blowout that they do in the beginning of every year. And so she approached me and she says, Jim, you're strangely happy for being a partner in a law firm, which I took as a compliment. And she said, and I know you lecture on innovative healthcare business planning. I said, yes, I do. So she said, would you be able to put together a talk on attorney mental competency? And I remember thinking, well, I don't think this is going anywhere. I mean, I'll do it as a community service. Sure, I'll do it. So I remember when I did this research, I don't know, like I said, 12, 13, 14 years ago, I was really struck by the data on attorneys and how we struggle at times with what we call burnout and things like that. And it really struck a nerve with me. And I also kind of assessed to myself, I get stressed out. I have heavy workload. I have a lot of pressure. What am I doing? Am I doing it right? And how do I do it? If I do it right, what am I doing right? So it got me, and if I'm doing it wrong, what am I doing wrong? So it really got me thinking. And so I did that first presentation, and weirdly to me, and I mean this, it was well received, which was not what I expected, to be perfectly honest. And then the San Diego Law Library asked if they could record me doing a version of that talk, which I did. Again, community service. And then what I didn't know is that put me on a national video library, which meant that the Office of the Attorney General of New York could find me, as could the Georgia Prosecutors Council. So apparently, everywhere where Trump could be possibly criminally prosecuted reached out to me to do a presentation on attorney mental burnout. So I just started doing it. And then at a certain point, I connected with the state bar because it occurred to me I should make sure that what I'm doing is consistent with what they're doing, because it seems like I should. And so I met Lita Abella, who was a wonderful and lovely presenter for the state bar on mental competency. And we ended up swapping slide decks. We liked each other's information. She asked me to do talks like this for the state bar whenever she couldn't, handle her invitations. And so I was happy to do that, predominantly in Southern California because I'm in San Diego, and virtual if in Northern California. And so it just took off. And so as the bio indicates, I've done versions of this talk around the country for several years, and I can't tell you why. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't understand, but I guess you'll find out, right? I mean, if this works for you, great. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. But Rochelle found me because CEB asked me to do these kinds of talks. And when Rochelle reached out to me for her Trust and Estate section for your amazing bar association, I asked her if she wanted me to do the latest talk, and she said, no, I want you to do the original talk. And I said, okay, let's do it. It is updated. It's a little bit different, but mostly the same, and updated with things that have been happening since then. So next slide. Let's dive in. I like to start these presentations with a couple parables. By the way, this is non-sectarian. You do not have to have any religion or a religion. This is not religion. I think of this as secular, humanistic, rational ways of thinking and functioning better. How's that? So first parable, a teacher was meeting with a new student, and the teacher and the student were sitting at a table with a pot of tea. The teacher starts pouring tea into the student's cup, and the teacher decides to keep pouring until the cup is overflowing. An embarrassing moment. The student looks surprised and asks the teacher, "What are you doing?" And the teacher observed, "Your mind is like this teacup. It's full. And when it's too full, it can't receive anything new." So I tell that parable as a reminder that you may know a lot about this for many reasons. Estate planning, if you get into probate litigation, you see the classic examples of dysfunctional family combined with economic stress, combined with our irrational primate capacity for conflict. So you see a lot. And even if you don't see that and you're drafting or structuring, you are contemplating death, healthcare concerns, family dynamics, sometimes often tax, and really good contract drafting too, based on the latest law of our state in those areas. But this is a topic where I'd like you to pour the tea out and just try to look at this fresh, because this topic does do well when you don't go into it thinking you know. It's better actually if you don't know and just see what lands for you. The other parable, so two monks who are in a tradition that thinks that everything is really, in a sense, in your head. Okay, so they're walking down the street and they see a very large boulder, and so one monk observes, that boulder is just in my mind. To which the other monk wryly observes, well, then your head must be extraordinarily heavy. And the reason why I think that's a funny parable and a funny story and a good one is that sometimes things are just real. Okay. It's not in your head. I really think of this subject matter of attorney mental health and competency as exactly that. It's not just in your head. There's really good statistics on this. It does happen. It's not just something that you can wish away or watch a really good Netflix series and get over it. It's real. So it's a real thing, and we're going to deal with it that way. And we're going to talk about that too. So next slide. Okay, so this is just a summary. We're going to talk about burnout, what it is and how it is. And I'm going to connect that, intersect it with compassion fatigue, because I actually think they're exactly the same thing. Um, Cleverly stated as sobering mental health stats. I'm going to talk about the data on attorney mental health. And it really is actually sobering. And I say that kind of a little bit in jest because addiction is one of our biggies. The prevalence of drinking and alcohol overuse is pretty significant in our profession. You probably know that. You don't have to admit to anything. um, Attorneys, I think, are actually more susceptible than immune to these challenges. I oftentimes find that in the creative arts, I also happen to be a professional musician. That depression can be really prevalent, and it often correlates to me with people with exceptionally high IQs. And I often think it's because they just kind of see everything, and that can be a lot. Attorneys are like that. Attorneys see a lot. We do have high IQs. I mean, at least I think we do. Supposedly we do, and we learn a lot, and we study a lot, and we study human nature a lot, and sometimes we try cases, and that makes us pretty aware. And that awareness is not an insulation. That awareness is actually a susceptibility, which calls us to be even more vigilant to protect our mental and emotional health. So we're going to then go into, well, how does the mind actually work? Okay, I don't actually have a PhD or a cognitive neuroscience background, but I'm going to give you some anecdotal, other people's expertise opinions on that, which I think are really interesting. If you look at it, you can see how we can go off track. And I think once you see that, you can do better. I have a legal extern working for me this semester for my law firm, my healthcare law firm, and I will occasionally accuse him of running blind in a mountain without a flashlight on and about to run into a tree. And I use that analogy for the lack of sort of generally understanding where you are, like what are we talking about? What is this? And getting like fundamental awareness of a topic before you then try to discern what's really going on. This is like that. You want to get a general sense first about how things work with the mind and observation and cognitive distortions and bias, because that lets you then open the door into, well, what might I do to do better? Will this problem ever go away? I am sorry to say, no, it won't. I don't think our minds are designed by evolution or otherwise to get everything right. We're going to get a lot wrong, and our brain's going to cheat and try to come to very rapid observations or sort of like trick conclusions that I think save a little bit of energy, but are often something we might call bias or black and white thinking, and we're going to talk about that. And then finally, we're going to talk about practical guidance. Okay, so what can we do about this thing? This our brains misfunctioning in a sense, our mood being affected by our inability to sort of square everything around us and make it make sense and make us make sense. And we're going to talk about what experts think help, which I think is important. And then I'll share with you what I think, which I think is less important. At least it's less credentialed, but I'll tell you what I think. So next slide. First, we're going to start with what is burnout, which I know you could tell me. Okay. It's not actually a mystery in a sense that we experience it, I think, all the time. But it's interesting to look at what experts define it as, which is essentially exhaustion. You can describe it as emotional, physical, mental. I mean, it could be financial exhaustion. And it relates to excessive prolonged stress. And I think with the notion of burnout, there's this sense that it's just not ending and there's no clear resolution or solution to it. This is a worldwide problem, folks. I know in America, we like to think that the world is kind of about America, so our media, what we read, what we study is very America oriented in America, but I just want you to know that, we are about 5 or 6% of the world population. Just know that 95% of the rest of the world is also struggling with this issue. And it is considered an occupational or workplace health hazard. I think that's right. I think that's the right way to look at it. It really does connect to work-related stress, the lack of control over our environments, often being asked to do excessive things in inadequate time without enough support. I bet that sounds familiar. Next slide. And if it's not your partner, it's your client, right? So what are work-related causes of stress? Again, I know you all could do this list and maybe even better, but this is just meant to be sort of a checklist of like, oh yeah, that's true. And by the way, this slide deck is your CLE handout. And I know it's kind of dense at times with word count. I prefer image-oriented slides too, but I like handing these out like this because it gives you guys a chance to read afterwards. And I do give links to resources, which I like doing. So apologies in advance, kind of dense slides, but that's what's going on. It's a handout too. So you can just look at this list and you could probably find one or two that match for you. I want to call out compassion fatigue. So often people observe that, where's the compassion? Where's empathy? What happened to empathy? What happened to compassion? It's burnout. I actually think that the condition is absolutely identical. They're like twins, the same DNA. Next page. I will get to that in a second. I thought the next slide was compassion fatigue. Personality traits. Okay, attorneys. What was going on in our childhoods when someone said, you ought to be an attorney? Well, we were probably arguing. We probably thought we were right. We probably had whatever it takes to be confident speaking, although that is not universal. Not all attorneys are, quote, trial attorneys, of course. Transactional lawyers are almost the opposite of a trial lawyer at times, like, whether it's doing tax or corporate research or drafting for hours, that is not the same skill. But nonetheless, I would say it requires a certain confidence that you are capable of learning, observing, and concluding correctly. And whether you're doing that in front of a jury or a judge, or you're creating a document that you believe will sustain the intent of the testator without a clever lawyer blowing it up. It takes a certain level of confidence to take control over the environment, whether it's paper or personally vocalized. And that's what we have. We have that trait. We often argue. We seem to be the arguers at times, although again, not always. Not always. I know there's this saying, there's this whole type A, type B personality. I'm not even sure that's considered valid anymore, but it's just sort of something that was said so often that it's probably perceived as true. And if that is in fact still true, which maybe not, but we tend to be viewed as type A, confident, taking charge, taking the lead. I think that contributes to burnout because it can we put ourselves into stressful situations. Maybe we like competition. Maybe we like going head to head, or maybe we just like really significant challenges. No matter what that looks like, attorneys' personality, I think, makes us actually more susceptible to burnout than less because of our capacity to be aware, because of our capacity to desire to learn, and honestly, because we will bite off more than we can chew. And we do it all the time. And if we don't do it, someone asks us to do that, whether it's a partner, a colleague, or a client. Next slide. There's obviously external causes of burnout. And I mean, come on, like World War III or some version of it, economic or otherwise, the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, it seems like we are daily bombarded with information that is almost perhaps designed to trigger our emotions. And of course it is. It's economic. So news outlets are popular with their constituencies because oh my God, I'm so sorry. I knocked my iPad over. Because they generate buzz, they generate stress, they generate interest, and you get a little addicted to it. Social media. Apparently, a jury has decided that maybe that's a problem, a jury or two. And it probably is a problem. I mean, I think it is. And again, we are buried with data and with information. And it's not just an accident, it's designed to trigger you. Okay. Advertising is designed to trigger you, to get you to have an emotional reaction one way or another, to help stimulate the purchase of a product. And let's be honest, I mean, when we're negotiating, we're attacking the other side's position. I mean, there's some emotion involved. We might be fighting off a challenge to an estate plan or yet another real estate dispute among siblings inheriting real estate or a company. So emotion and triggered anxiety is involved. And, there was a time when that system helped us react quickly to a threat to our lives. So if we were walking in a jungle and heard a scary sound, we were designed to react and energize and get fight or flight mode and be ready to fight to the death or run like the wind. And the problem is nowadays, thankfully, our physical well-being is usually not attacked on a daily basis. Hopefully not. It seems like it could be possible, but probably not. But nonetheless, that system is triggered, and it's intentionally triggered by really clever politicians, PR firms, news media, large corporations, economic interests, social media. I mean, wow. We hardly stand a chance. That takes a lot of work to maintain equilibrium and a neutral, observant frame of mind. That's our challenge. Okay, next slide. Okay, again, long list, way too long. I'm certainly not going to read it all. It's just simply there for you to check off on and to check out. But I can tell you for me, I know when I'm burned out is when the load of tasks is overwhelming. I can get into kind of a stasis, or I don't want to say catatonic state, but there's a certain procrastination before huge things that must be done that exceed the time I've allotted in my calendar for the task. I can let exercise slip. I can let good habits slip. It's easy to get disconnected from friends and family and going out and just hanging out with people because we just don't think we deserve that when we haven't gotten those 4 tasks done. So we just don't do it, and that's not helpful. Mood can be affected, definitely. I do think we self-medicate. Self-medication can be in the form of doom scrolling, excessively watching a certain news channel, whatever your flavor is. It can be food. snacking. It can be alcohol, could be something else. Um, we're trying, but we're not strategic in that trying. And so maybe what we're trying isn't really that helpful. And I think that's what happens is we know we need something, something's happening and we need to feel better. It's just what we grab for in that moment, if we don't give this thought, can often be counterproductive. And we know what that looks like. Next slide. Okay, here's compassion fatigue. So if you take a look at the circle of compassion fatigue factors, I think you'll observe what I observe, which is it's the same as burnout. You know, it's literally the same. What's going on with that? Well, I'll give you my theory, and it goes like this. I think when you're in pain, you don't have the capacity to be aware of other people or anything other than your pain. So try to imagine or remember a time when you were in a lot of pain, and maybe you're in a lot of pain right now. Um, that's certainly possible. Okay, what if you either kind of take a look at that for a second or remember that it is absolutely impossible to focus on anything but the pain. And that's what that is all about. I tell this story. Okay, I surf. I've surfed for a very long time, and I actually used to coach a high school surf team. And I volunteer for an Indigenous peoples surf water organization that helps Indigenous kids get reconnected to the ocean because I think it's fun to surf, and I think that's cool. So that's one of those things I do for my headspace. So in the water in Southern California, if you don't shuffle and if you're not careful, you can get stung by a stingray. If you get stung by a stingray, you're supposed to get out of the water, find a lifeguard. They throw your foot into a scalding hot bucket, and that heat breaks down the protein that is the stingray poison, and you start feeling better almost immediately. It's a real pain. So one day I got stung before a surf session as while I was going out. And I'm like, I am not going to go to the damn lifeguard. So I sucked it up and I surfed for about an hour with a stingray sting. And it was very interesting to see how that pain was durably in my head. And while I'm normally very friendly and chatty in the water, all of that was gone. I was, and my mood was dark. Okay, and I think of that when I think of compassion fatigue. That's what it looks like. We can't have empathy because we are hurting too much. It's not good. And so when we're hurting too much, we need to think about, well, what can we do about that? Next slide. Okay, this is the slide called "It's Not in Your Head." So again, I know it's really probably hard to see on your screen because it's a little too small. It'll be a lot easier for you to read when you look at the slide deck afterwards as a handout and check it out. But I'm just going to give you some really broad strokes. About 1 in 4 or 5 Americans has a mental health disorder. You probably knew that from driving or going to the store, okay, or going to a sports game, or just being around people, or going to a bar, or doing things in your firm. But okay, it's not in your head. That is a true fact. And statistically, most people are untreated because in America we have a weird thing with mental health. We kind of don't think of it as health. We think maybe it's your fault, or maybe you weren't raised right, or maybe you're not chosen or something. I don't know. So culturally in America, we are quite, I almost want to say barbaric with mental health. We get a little judgy and strange in our attitude about it, which means we are self-conscious about it in a way that we're not self-conscious when we have an infection. If you get an infection, you get medicine. No big deal. No one thinks because you got an infection, you're just a really bad person or raised on the wrong side of the tracks. But somehow in mental health, all of that goes out the window and we're super primitive, you know. And I think we're getting better, but we're still not there yet. COVID, I think, helped in a sad way because it just, everyone was suffering. But we're still working on this. So this is just to tell you that a lot of people struggle with this. And there probably are conditions. And I know some people are like, I don't really believe in conditions. Why does everyone talk about this? I just was on TikTok. I know, I know there's a lot of talk about neurodivergence and that stuff. But again, the boulder is heavy. It's not in your head. This is real stuff. And it's just health. And it's a health condition that is often wildly undertreated in America. Insurance coverage is really bad. coverage is terrible. People often rely on cash to get any help if they get the help, and many don't. And so that means people with less means get less help, which means they're sicker. And then there's like a kind of a catch-22 cycle for that. So this is just to say it's a real challenge in America, and it's a challenge worldwide. This is not just an American phenomenon. We're pretty good at this. Like, we know how to stress people out really well, but it's a problem worldwide too. And it's a health problem. It's just health. Next page. Okay. So what we're looking at and what we're facing as attorneys is we're probably too smart for our own good. We don't really have a lot of training or tools in emotional or mental health and well-being. That wasn't a class in law school or poli-sci or economics or history or English or whatever we majored in. Probably didn't include this. Okay. So we don't have a lot of support in this, right? And not a lot of education. We have a stressful profession. We struggle with it. We probably self-medicate to try to deal with that. And I mean, the fact that 71% of attorneys report anxiety, that's a super high percentage, folks. That's not low. That's really high. So that rock's not in our head. This is our challenge. Question: what are we going to do about it? Good news. There are things to do. Okay. Little things and big things. Let's talk about that. So let's go next slide. All right. Before we get there, the good news is that there's some data suggesting attorney burnout is abating. I'd like to say the profession's trying. Okay, so the ABA has done a bunch of studies and publications on attorney mental health and attorney well-being. Kudos to ABA. Virtually, literally every bar association in America has content, has committees. I'm the chair of the San Diego County Bar Association Attorney Wellness Committee. I've been the chair for a couple of years now, and I've been on the committee for several years. And I don't think San Diego's alone. I know that's true. Bars all over the country and in our state are trying to address attorney wellness, realizing that if we don't deal with this, it's a crisis and people get hurt, because when we go down, they go down. When our judgment's impaired, clients get hurt. And not only clients, significant others, family members, friends, colleagues, firms, agencies are all negatively impacted when we go down. So our job is not to go down, to monitor this and to do the best we can to make it better. We're making progress. So that is the good news. But the bad news is it's not entirely gone, and I don't actually think it ever will be. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these are just some sobering statistics on lawyers and burnout and mental health. And let me just summarize it. It's still a problem. Okay. I know some of you are very data driven, so you're like, I know he says that, but your oppositional defiance, which, maybe at times triggers discovery emotions, is going, but I don't know, like, just because he says so. But it's not really me, I swear to God. It's really credible information that our profession does struggle with mental anxiety, competency, and burnout. It's for real. Let's just leave it at that and go next slide. We don't have to dwell on it. Why should this matter to you? Now, I'm going to give you my unique take on the rules of professional conduct. I remember when I joined this profession many years ago, I got a pretty sort of mixed review from colleagues on state bar rules. I kind of got the feeling like it was one of those things that's just a burden on us that we have to deal with, and it sucks. Okay, just to kind of put it colloquially. And God forbid, don't ever touch the state bar ever for any reason, anytime, forever and ever. The end. Okay, so over time, my attitude toward the bar and the bar's rules has really evolved. I guess I'm getting older. And I've come to the conclusion that the rules of professional conduct are an amazing stress reducer, because it makes it really easy. You just got to do it. It's like, there's really no messing around with it. It's just do it. And so I like to look at the rules of professional conduct as actually a comfort. In a world that often lacks black and white, and we have a black and white cognitive distortion, um, in a world where there's so many shades of gray, where people can swear to God they're telling the truth under oath and they believe it, and I'm kind of thinking it's not true. Here is something that you can look at that's actually black and white. And these rules with respect to our competency are black and white. Guys, I mean, we have to be competent. We have to be in our senses. We have to be watching ourselves. Are we being unreasonable? Are we being irrational? Are we citing bad law? Did we go to ChatGPT and get hallucinatory citations that me and then maybe my client is going to pay for? Okay, that's not good. So our judgment needs to be solid. And I'm just quoting some rules of professional conduct that say so. There's actually more than this. This is just like a short summary. But to make it clear for you, we all have to watch this. And it's not easy. We all know what it's like to buy into an argument or believe someone who we thought was trustworthy. We find out like they're not trustworthy and our position is not solid. It happens. So that's our job, is to watch ourselves, because our judgment, our analysis is what people are paying for, and they pay a lot. Next slide. Okay. These are my challenges. I don't like to dwell on myself because I don't really actually think I do this as well as you might think. Just ask my wife. And I say that now, that's so true. So for me, I definitely was diagnosed with ADHD like very early on, because I was in this Catholic grade school with Irish cloister nuns who thought my bad handwriting was a sign that I had a mental incapacity. And then I got tested, which was an interesting experience as a kid, to know you're being tested because Sister Agnes thinks you're dumb, basically. And then the opposite was true. Okay, so then now they don't know what to do with me, and it's like a hot mess. But in the middle of all that, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Now, interestingly, my mom was a pharmacist, and she refused to treat me at the time, which I have learned from healthcare professionals later was not a bad decision because of the way medication worked then, which was quite a long time ago, versus now, which actually it's pretty good. So I think for me, when I look at that diagnosis, I don't feel like it's like some sort of death sentence or a handicap. I actually think of it like a superpower, and I try to harness it, knowing that it's got negatives like anything. Like, so I was an athlete. I played basketball and ran track in high school. I was supposed to play D1 basketball, but then I had a back injury, the end, from track of all things. But I know very well that in sports and in competition, it doesn't really matter what your setup is. It's just how do you maximize it? So it's not like one thing, it's like 20 things, and how to do that well relative to other people. So for me, I look at that ADHD diagnosis as an attribute. And it's just something I watch, and I occasionally use it to my great advantage. And I'm not kidding. I do. I also got diagnosed with having a hyperthymic personality in the middle of a breakup in which there was therapeutic intervention. And the therapist said, by the way, did you know you have a hyperthymic personality? I'm like, I don't even know what that is. No. And apparently that involves some good and bad things like everything else. The good side, you have a lot of energy, you don't need a lot of sleep. So when you think of Silicon Valley startups and you think about how they sort of self-medicate, essentially they're self-medicating to be hyperthymic, which is optimistic, high functioning, fast, and not needing a lot of sleep. Downsides are real. You can have an issue with boundaries. You can be too trusting. So again, it's like knowing what your challenge is and then navigating that is, I think, really key to this. I basically think everyone has something, okay? And I don't say that in a judgmental sense. I just think that it's just a dry, data-driven observation that evolution created many different kinds of brain chemistries, and all of them did something good, right? So all of them have an advantage, all of them. but they also have disadvantages or things to mitigate. The end. It's really simple. So it's just a matter of figuring out what yours is and then taking the advantages while mitigating the disadvantages. And honestly, I can simplify these boxes to just that. That's all I've done my whole life. So for me, being active in sports has always helped me calm down and get mental clarity and also stay healthier. Reading and learning have always been good ways to stimulate my mind. I find that to be effective. I always have to control my time because I know I won't always be time aware. There's this thing called time blindness, and that's a real thing. That's a rock. So I always have to work on that, and I do. And I also have found that aligning myself with mission, in other words, whether I'm donating time to something I enjoy or choosing to be around people whom I feel energetically well-being with, is really, really important. And it took me a long time, but I finally aligned my profession with what I believe in, which was not easy to do, and you know that. Okay. It is very hard, but with any amount of work and luck and some help from other people, you can eventually get to a place where your professional services and what you do for a living are 100% aligned with what you believe in and what you think you're supposed to do to make the world better. And I encourage everyone to try to do that in ways large and small, because I think it matters. And I think that is the number one and two anecdotes to burnout. It, and I don't know which order to put them in, but having a mission beyond yourself to try to make something better, to help someone else other than yourself. I mean, working just to pay off the credit card is not good enough. Working to get a bigger house, it's not good enough, I don't think. Um, and curiosity, being open to learning, emptying that teacup is super important, because the more we devoid ourselves of judgment of ourselves and others, realizing that everyone who's triggering us is probably just showing us a version of us. That's a big one. Happens with kids, by the way, too. Like the kid who really pisses you off is just like you. Okay. So it's a challenge, something to look out for and then to be curious about. So next slide. All right. This is a really just quick take on how the mind works. Okay. I feel like when I grew up, and by the way, I was a science major for 2 years in college before I went into English. So I thought I was going to go to med school, and then I didn't. So I took a lot of hard science. And I think years ago, there was a sense that we are like one thing, right? Like when you drop off the ledge and eat too many donuts, or never exercise for 4 months while eating a lot of cheeseburgers or whatever, one or two too many drinks, whatever's going on. I think in the movie of our mind, we think that's one person, right? Like that's us. Like we just made a bad choice. But it turns out that the way our minds really function is as a system of different things. And so think of you as a committee as opposed to Captain Ahab and the white whale. Okay. So it's easy to think like you're at the helm of a ship, one thing, but actually it's not like that. And it's funny, we have neural pathways in our gut and our heart and of course in our brain. They're all talking. There's interaction and communication going on with mood and hormones and stress and cortisol, and all of that is a conversation with unlimited potential outcomes. And decision making is a committee of different things in us. And so I like this theory because it tells me that you just need to get a majority on your committee to get something good done. Okay. And I literally think that's how it works. The question is, how do you get that majority? And by the way, these discussions happen in like a nanosecond, right? Next slide. So, another thing that I think helps us understand our brains and how we work is to look at cognitive distortions. I started looking at this issue when I was putting together these talks years ago, and I cannot tell you how interesting and entertaining I find cognitive distortions to be. So cognitive distortions are basically how your mind on a minute by minute, hour by hour, daily basis tricks you. So this is what it looks like when someone has these radical political opinions and they won't listen to anything else. Or when someone thinks a case is a certain way because they had a feeling and their feelings are always right. And you cannot talk them out of that, no matter what you say. Or this is what happens when a bunch of good things really happen and then your mind goes, yeah, but something bad's about to happen. I mean, those are cognitive distortions. And it's fun to get a little distant from them rather than swimming in them. When you swim in them, you're probably pretty unhappy. But when you can step back away from them and sort of look at what you're doing, good news, bad news, bad news. You're never going to stop doing this. Never. You will never be free of cognitive distortions. Don't trust me. Trust Danny Kahneman and Amos Tversky, two psychologists who won the Nobel Peace Prize in, drumroll, economics, because drumroll, they disproved a fundamental tenet of economic theory, which was, well, people will be rational with their dollar. No, they won't. You will not be rational with the dollar or mostly anything else. And Tversky and Kahneman proved this conclusively. And it's just interesting to look at. Next page. So these are just some examples of cognitive distortions. I'm not going to read them all, but black and white thinking, filtering, like you lost the trial. No, the judge just looked at the evidence. Maybe they didn't like your client. You know, random bad things happen, and you might think it's bad luck or it's because of the outfit you wore. Probably not. You might have a really good life, but be very unhappy. And you might find that actually increases the more money you make, which is a really easy thing to see in other people, but a challenge to shift from projection to self-analysis. And a lot of that is negative filtering. Like, you just, when your existential life is not at risk, all of a sudden the late delivery of Amazon becomes the worst thing that ever happened in the world. And come on, we've met that person, right? And I've represented very wealthy people at times and have been struck at how unhappy they are at times. Not always, but a lot of times. And this is what they're doing, negative filtering. It's how our brains work. Next page. So let's talk about what mindful people do. And here I am going to read a few of these things because I think it matters. Mindfulness. It's a pretty well-worn word. I know it is. What does it even mean? It's just really awareness. And it's awareness that's often supported by exercise. Well, how do you exercise mindfulness? You meditate. Well, how do you meditate? Am I shutting my brain off? No. Actually, you're just learning how to sit and breathe and observe yourself and how your mind works. You're not emptying your mind, you're watching yourself and you're not reacting. That's meditation. Is there one way to meditate? Nope, 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 no. You can meditate about a million different ways, at least in my opinion. Um, what mindful people do is directly an antidote to cognitive distortions. So they don't always believe their thoughts or take them seriously. They don't try to avoid or deny their emotions. If you suppress those emotions, you're just going to start self-medicating. They understand things come and go, so things change. You win a case, you lose a case. You get a great client, you get a great outcome. You have a psycho client, you have a terrible outcome. You get paid, you don't get paid. Your firm loves you, your firm hates you. Your staff loves you, your staff hates you. Your staff does great, your staff makes the worst mistake in history. Things change. Next page. We do one thing at a time when we're being mindful. Okay, I know this multitasking myth. I hope the bubble has been popped. No, you're not supposed to multitask. You're going to be shitty at everything you're multitasking. Okay, like, I'm sorry if that offends you. We try to focus. Turn mundane tasks into mindful moments and really practice being curious. I think number 6 is key. Next page. Go outdoors and embrace the beauty of nature. I actually think we're hardwired. Okay, I know the pastoral, but I think we're hardwired to really calm down when we spend a little time outdoors. And by contrast, when we throw ourselves in a cube or only walk around 1,000 people milling together, running into each other and staring at each other's clothes, it's kind of stressful. So getting a little bit of outdoor time is key. Like mindfully eating, like being aware of what you're eating can help that self-medicating thing. Slowing down when you read. How many times have you heard an attorney say, "Oh, I read that person like a book. I can tell when someone's lying in 5 seconds." Okay, no, you can't. You know, I mean, I know you think you can, but I'm pretty sure there's instances of that not being true, and perhaps it's over 50%. It's like you have to slow down to be aware and to be observant. It's not rapid. It's not rapid. It's just being slowed down and neutral minded and being open to what I'm saying. Next page. Fully present without trying to judge or control. You know us attorneys, we want to control everything. The firm, our staff, our associates, our paralegals, our law clerks, our boss, our clients. We have a lot of opinions. We know what everyone should do. We know exactly what you should do. When we know what's wrong with you. We often don't know what's wrong with us though, because we're spending in this time in this projection thing, which is so much easier. It's like a cheat. Like, yeah, we got to really look at ourselves. And that means we have to be present. Taking mini breaks when working or studying. How many of you are so proud of the all-nighter? Or think of it as a badge of honor when you worked 6 hours straight drafting. All right, it's not really great engine management there. Like we're running a little low on oil. So it's just practical stuff. They laugh at themselves. Okay, we all know what it looks like when someone can't laugh at themselves. And it's a little sad and it's ridiculed, right? You don't want to be made fun of, right? Laugh at yourself. It will help. Like, because if you don't laugh at yourself, let me assure you, someone's laughing, okay? And you probably wouldn't like it. Next page. I laugh at myself all the time. Challenge existing beliefs. See, we also do this. We tend to give all this credit to long-term adherence to the tried and true. And I think of that as really primitive. Like, isn't something better coming up? Like, didn't someone write something afterwards? Like, didn't someone think of something really clever and we're supposed to ignore that? I don't think so. And I think we're supposed to stay open to doing things better and then nourish your bodies. Okay, next page. Okay, here's where I want us to get, and I say this for myself too. This Venn diagram talks about a way for you to find mission or purpose. So you start on the outside, the world needs something, you get paid, you're great, you love it. And then you get into one layer in, and we start talking about passion, mission, profession, and vocation. And then in the middle of that is a purpose. And I am not talking about the Steve Martin movie and your special purpose. And if you're old enough, you know what I just said. Next page. This is about focusing on our way of achieving balance, whatever that looks like. Funny slide. Next page. So I like this graphic because it kind of covers everything. I don't think we all have to be into one thing, okay? Every word on this slide is positive in my book, okay? All of it. But you just got to find your flavor. And maybe it's opportunity. Maybe it's fairness. Maybe it's access and inclusion. Maybe it's race. Maybe it's prosperity. I don't know. But the thing is, pick your version of it. And without crapping on everybody else, try to work on yourself and figuring out how you can make that vision a reality with the professional tools you've been given. Next slide. This isn't about judging every other people. This is about you getting into you. I can't stress that enough. We live at a time where everybody just unloads and it just looks stupid, okay? When you're unloading, it looks stupid. You want to look at yourself first and kind of start working from that place, like, not the other places, but that place. Um, I'm going to just get into some anecdotal habits in the last 5 minutes or traits, and we'll go quick. These are just some examples, like get counseling. What's a big deal? Like, it's no big deal. Just do it. Like, you get paid for lawyer skills. You don't pull out your own tooth, I hope. Go to a dentist. Well, there are people who actually are good at therapy, and they're probably not you. Okay, although you're probably good at counseling, like a version of it. But there are people who are good at that, and you should talk to them sometimes. Taking personal time, stress reducing hobbies, avoiding stressful activities. It's all about being aware. Next slide. Um, these are NAMIs. It's a national nonprofit mental health organization. I'm not going to read all these to you, but these are just some tips about how to detach, practice mindfulness, create good boundaries, prioritize and delegate, and keep breathing. By the way, I'm a member of the Mindfulness and Law Society. It's an international nonprofit. It's not limited to just licensed attorneys. Anyone can join who cares about mindfulness and law. It matters. I highly recommend it. I'm the chair of the San Diego chapter. Next slide. My solution paths. Okay. So I work on curiosity every day. I'm always reading. I challenge my beliefs all the time. My wife gets so sick of it because I'll figure out something and I'll go, okay, why am I wrong? And she's like, you're not wrong. I'm like, yeah, but I might be. Because I'm not going to just assume I'm right just because I think so. You really have two versions of thinking going on, slow and fast, and that's a whole book or 10, but you need to use both. As a musician, creative expression is really good for me. It clears my head, clears my mind, helps me problem solve in creative ways. Exercise and mindfulness, meditation, yoga. I'm a certified yoga teacher. I did that because I liked it. I decided the yoga version I joined was a cult. I left it. See, there's that challenge your beliefs thing. I'm not just preaching to you, I'm practicing it myself. I reject what I discover is not cool. And I think that's good. Community outreach is huge. Doctors who I work with will tell me, well, how do I get more clients? I'll go, well, are you a person? Do you have a hobby? Do you do anything? Do you talk to anyone? Do you actually go do something other than your profession? And do you interact with people and listen and not talk all the time? Okay, those are good things. You should do that. You probably have more clients. And then having a family and a personal life, whatever that looks like, could be your 8 best friends. Next page. Okay. Um, Again, I'm going to leave this to your reading. These are just sort of if you do this, do that. Um, I think they're good, but we don't need to dwell. Next page. Um, this is just another algorithm for working on burnout from a professional expert. And you're going to find that all of these approaches have very similar um, algorithms, and they go like this: observe it, look at it, study it, don't freak out, like don't react. By the way, that's a judicial temperament, which we're all supposed to be working on, right? So judicial temperament means you intake evidence, you don't have a predisposition or a prejudgment, you're open to what the evidence shows you, and then you come to the best conclusion you can based on the best law and the best facts, and perhaps policy too. Don't forget policy. Um, you're going to find that that sort of formula is everywhere, doing everything all at once. It's a way to really enhance your mental clarity. Next page. This is just another thing I'll commend to your reading. It's another article that you can click and read. Those are just summaries. You'll find that most of these approaches ask you just to watch yourself. What are you doing? How do you spend your time? What are you eating? Who are you talking to? How do you feel? That's really what helps. Awareness helps. You can fix it once you know it. But if you're self-medicating and stupefying yourself with food, drugs, booze, and social media and endless streams of media and work, you're just going to burn it out, and then you're just going to hit rock bottom. we don't want that for you. We want you to stop and check it out. How can I do this better? Next page. Again, commend to CLE reading after this presentation. JAMA is a very well-regarded healthcare publication. I'm aware of it because I do healthcare law. And there was some really good data supporting mindfulness as actually more effective than other approaches to reducing opioid craving. I find that to be incredibly interesting because it means that that's a tactic that's not only thousands of years old, but it works. Next page. Okay, so here's where I'm going to support you in our last 60 seconds. Try being kind. So often we reward boldness, brassiness, best in show, fastest runner, most points. How often do we reward kindness in our culture? Do we ever? Do kids ever get a kindness award? I find that in grade school they do. That's really cool, by the way. I'm happy to report that we are figuring this out. But maybe at your grade school, because I know at my grade school, there was no kindness award. Um, when you have a team, think about rewarding kindness as opposed to zero typos. I mean, zero typos is great. Kindness is even better. And start with yourself. If you're not kind to yourself, you're going to be a complete jerk to everyone around you. Next page. Recognize, reverse, and engage in resilience. It's that algorithm we've been talking about the whole time. Awareness, don't react, strategize, take action. It's never going to change. Next page. Book list for you, and I'm 1 minute over. I'm sorry. I'm going to go fast. I can't recommend enough all of these books. Let me just call out a few. The Scout Mindset actually took on the project called How Do I Get Over Kahneman and Tversky's Depressing Data and Believe in a Way of Overcoming Bias? That's it. Thank you, Julia Galiff. Thinking Fast and Slow is Danny Kahneman's way of wearing you out and absolutely in a very discouraging way, convincing you that your brain doesn't work right. I don't recommend it if you have mood swings, but it will, if you are oppositionally defiant and you need proof, your proof is going to be right there. You Are Not So Smart was an excellent book. It's a little dated, but what I love about that book is it not only accounts for cognitive distortions, but it dives into heuristics and logic errors, which you may find helps you in your persuasion or negotiating or litigation. The Undoing Project was Michael Lewis's story about Kahneman and Tversky. You may have known another book by him called, oh God, I just blanked on the name of his book. It was about the Oakland A's and their scouting, how they did scouting, and they were able to Moneyball. Thank you. It just took me a moment. So Michael Lewis wrote Moneyball, and then he wrote The Undoing Project. Let's go next page. So these are sort of more existential, broader philosophical books. I like them. You may not. If you are inclined to depression and negativity, it is very, very much dated in a way, but I recommend Factfulness by Hans Rosling, because Hans Rosling made a brilliant observation at how we tend to overestimate the negative. And he's very convincing in that book. And the book has a twist that might make you cry or not, depending on how in touch you are with your emotions. If you find your mind is mathematically inclined, which is not always the case in law, but sometimes, Algorithms to Live By is a book written by two software engineers who started observing that things that cure software errors have a correlation to curing human mental, I won't say defects, but misthinking. And then all of the rest of the books are amazing. I'm a huge fan of E.O. Wilson. He's now deceased. He was an evolutionary biologist, and he drew quite a few conclusions from a lifetime of evolutionary biology study. Um, he's amazing. And then finally, if you want an antidote to daydreaming, are you a daydreamer? And do you like imagine really great things and then like snap out of it and then notice it's not there? Read Rethinking Positive Thinking by Gabriella Autogen, because she really sort of reimagines, like she calls BS on outright positivity, explains why, and then comes up with a system called WHOOP to try to help you identify an objective and work toward it as opposed to daydreaming. I thought it was really cool. Next page. Okay. I help out the LAP and the California State Bar. I work with Ken Norse, who runs that program. Great guy, does an excellent job. It's an important program in our state. So just know that you have free wellness presentations. You have a couple free therapeutic assessments or therapy sessions or counseling if you want. All of it is promised to be confidential. Um, Admittedly, I think it's a little bit like walking up to a highway patrol person and saying, "Hey, I have a problem with speeding. Do you have any tips?" But, you know, I believe the bar when they say they are doing this confidentially, and there are resources for you if you want to take them. And they do seem like lovely people. Everyone I've met's been great. Next page. Um, and then this is more on LAP. Next page. Um, More state resources. Next page. Okay, intention's really important. If anything, walk away from this talk, walk away knowing that there is actually a thousands of year old way of helping train your brain to function better, to make better judgments under duress, and to be more effective as a human being. You just have to want to do that. And it starts with an intention. If you have that intention and you want to go on that journey, are you going to be happy every day? Nope. Are all your problems going to go away? Nope. Is everything going to be great all the time? No. Are you going to have massive, seemingly impossible problems? Yes. Okay. Like all of that's true. You're just going to do better. It's not that reality is going to change. It's just your relationship with it will be more positive and productive. You're not going to win every time, but you're going to win a little more. And I think that's good. Next page. I always talk about the headlamp, and you can go to Plato's cave if you want, that everything is like a illusion or everything we see is a shadow from a light in the cave, or there's a lot of darkness. Okay, there's a lot of lack of awareness. We do the best we can, but we don't catch and see everything. I think of mindfulness training and intending to try to work on this as just turning on a headlamp. You're going to see more. Does it mean you're going to win? No. Does it mean there's never going to be problems? No. You might even see more problems, but you'll handle it better. Next page. Okay, and then this is a way to reach me. So I invite email inquiry. I invite if you have observations about the presentation, if you want to engage on any level, please do. I'm going to the Q&A. I'm so sorry we've run late. My bad, but let me quickly go to Q&A. Do you have a recommendation for any guided meditation or mindfulness exercises? Thank you for the presentation. You're welcome. Okay. Well, yes, I do. So there's a short answer and a long answer. Let me start short. Don't think of meditation as an orthodoxy. Think of it as simply sitting still in any place or time, eyes are open or closed, and working on just being aware without reacting. I think that's the best meditation. And just watch what you watch, observe what you observe. Now, I'll give you a more complicated answer. I was trained in Kundalini Yoga. Kundalini Yoga is not actually Yogi Bhajan, although he did do it. But it actually dates back thousands of years and predates Hinduism, predates the existence of Buddhism. And my favorite book on the subject was written on leaves by Tamils and Dravidians in the south of India 6,000 years ago. And it's called The 18 Siddhas. And so I've studied a lot of this quite a bit, and it really all boils down to high awareness while breathing mindfully with awareness. And there's a variety of breath techniques. You've probably heard about the box breath. So here's my advice. Number one, never think of meditation as not breath work. It's always breath work. Okay. It really is. Always think of meditation as energetic awareness and energetic practice. It never isn't. Um, think of meditation as something you could be doing. Like I ride a motorcycle, okay, among other. I know I'm kind of interesting. I ride a K1600 BMW. It's a 900-pound roughly motorcycle with a straight six engine, and I know that could die at any minute. I actually think I'm meditating when I ride that motorcycle, okay? In the sense that I'm aware, I'm mindful, I know that that car's going to try to kill me and that car's going to try to kill me, and I'm either going to blow past them or avoid them. So think of meditation and awareness as not something you do on a pillow with your legs folded, although you can certainly do that too. But think of it as something you do on an ongoing, day-to-day, minute-by-minute basis. Alan Watts, who was an interesting teacher and speaker, he hated meditation and he never did it. He really practiced mindfulness, and I really like what he had to say about that. Um, Lewis wrote The Big Short. You're absolutely right. Thank you from Q&A. Okay, let's see. I did White Tantric with Yogi Bhajan. Wow. In New Mexico when you were younger. Amazing experience. Okay, I'm going to give you what I think. I think Yogi Bhajan's version of Kundalini Yoga is brilliant. Okay, based on my research and my studies, he did not do anything wrong when it came to his breath work, exercise, combinations thereof. Okay, what he didn't need to do but chose to do is create a version of the Sikh religion that was uniquely American, but not uniquely Sikh from an Indian perspective. And he blended that with yoga, which is interesting. And I don't think it's, quote, wrong, but it can take you to places that religion often gets to. And that can be problematic. Okay. So I love Kundalini yoga. I practice Kundalini yoga. I do not wear white robes. I do not wear a white turban. When I went through teacher training, they asked if they could show me how to put on a white turban. I said, I'm never going to wear a white turban. So you don't have to bother teaching me how to wear the white turban. I don't think a black t-shirt is negating your aura. Okay. I'm more empowerment. You can do it as you wish. So it looks like questions are cleared. Yay. Oh, wait, is there more or did we get more? Uh, yeah, I did not take a Sikh name too. Like they try to get you to take a Sikh name. And I love the Sikh religion. Do not get me wrong. I love the Sikh gurus. I love that the 12th guru is a book and it's a holy book. I love mantra and chanting. I think it's all amazing. I am not a Sikh, but I respect the Sikh religion immensely. I really, really do. I have a name. I don't need to change it. I am not a lion or a princess. Okay. I'm not from Punjabi, so I'm not saying, but thank you anyway. I actually even go back before Buddhism. And if you're curious about that, I highly recommend Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, which at the end of that book, it's a Zen book, and you're going to find that a lot of what we talked about was in that book. At the end of Zen Flesh, Zen Bones are guided meditations. So for the person who is asking about guided meditations, I like those the best. The Zen Flesh, Zen Bone, those date back pre-Buddhism to the Dravidian culture, which was the darker, shorter culture conquered by the invading Aryans that migrated from around Afghanistan and north, south, and west, and ended up in northern India, and southern too, Persia as well, and Afghanistan. Picking no sides in that colonization adventure. I like the Dravidians. I like what they figured out. And much of that got appropriated, in my opinion. without credit. You're very welcome, Mr. Shabani or Miss. So I'm going to wrap it up here. If there's no further questions, I commend you to the slide deck. Read away. I think that reading list is cool. If you find something that you love, do it. You don't have to read all of it. Just read something that resonates with you. And of course, I mean this, email me, reach out. Think about joining the Mindfulness and Law Society, MILS. You can find it online. They do guided meditations, virtual, 30 minutes, every Monday at noon and every Wednesday at 2 p.m. And then the San Diego chapter, that's my chapter, I do a Friday noon virtual meditation every week. So if you are interested in any of that, all of that's free, all of it's weekly, all of it's available to you at no charge and no inconvenience whatsoever. And if you feel like joining Mills, great. There's an LA chapter that's growing. So if you're in LA, jump into that chapter. Those are great people. I met them at a retreat in the Bay Area. They're cool as hell. And we work together. We want to work together, and we will. And then also look at your wellness section for your bar. And if your bar doesn't have one, get them to make one and push out content on attorney wellness. It's just making us better at what we do. Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to end it right here at 16 minutes over schedule. And I hope you got something interesting. And thanks for listening.
This concludes today's presentation. Thank you so much, Jim, for an excellent presentation. And thank you so much for our audience joining us today. Have a great day, everybody.